welcome to the Bladtcast. Let's keep it laid back and subdued in 2022. Or not. Welcome to the show. Very excited to have assembled the three-headed monster known as the Bladtcast. I am Christian Blatt. For those watching live, you can see right there the one and only Mr. Will Starling.
Charlie the dog heard the bell through my headphones and got up and left the room. I'm not kidding.
Honestly,
he perked up and then he just got up and walked away.
Anyone who is ever in a household and hears this show through a pair of headphones knows to get up, walk out of the room instantly.
It's true.
I assume, Jeff DeRay, I assume that there are no pups within listening distance because they can't stand the show.
Well, I just ditched her downstairs so that she wouldn't be on the other side of the door crying like she was before.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing is that there's a door right there, and my kids are on the other side of it crying, and I will not open that door. That is my commitment to both of you and to all of Bladtcast Nation. I wanted to get us all together and start off the new year by talking about how everything's going in the new year, 2022, the year of our Lord. And by our Lord, of course, I mean Jeff Bezos. But in any case, I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on, what's new. And for our Bladtcast audience who saw our previous episode, 473, where I chatted with our old pal Zia, I let her in on what I'm up to and what's going on, but I'll tell the guys. But I feel like I should be a good host and in true hostly fashion, ask each of you, Will, how's 2022 going for you, brother?
So far so good. I wrote a book during quarantine and I been sending out query letters to agents. I sent out my first round.
Sorry, what kind of letters?
See what you're doing there, Christian.
What kind of letters did you send out?
Query.
Oh, query.
Yes.
I thought I thought it was a descriptive. Now
No.
It was a noun. Yeah. Look, I was just like, I can't wait to read the book either way, but just a different book than I thought it was.
Query for a straight guy.
Query as folk.
Yes. So I sent out the first round. Some no's, a lot of silence, as is usually a no in any industry. Yeah. So retooling the query letter, and that's like Mark Hunt, and sending out some new ones. Trying not to lose faith. I think I'm gonna hit it hard as much as I can, trying to get either agent or publishing all of 2022, and if nothing comes up by the end of the year, I'll I don't know, I'll get clever and I'll grassroots the book. But I'm on a veil for a commercial already, and I have had some good auditions. So
because of your scheduling mix-up, we're able to promote something that we hadn't promoted on the Bladtcast.
That's true.
So next Tuesday, the 18th, of January,
correct,
on ABC. At 9:30, 8:30 Central. What up, Farad?
Central always fucks me up.
That's for Farad. We wanted to make sure he knows.
It always confuses me. So I'm like, wait, what time is it here then?
Yeah. You're going to be doing what, William?
I will be in an episode of Blackish. Mm-hmm. And I will be playing a waiter. I'm just a good, reliable waiter, Christian.
This is not the first time I've seen you play a waiter in something.
No, that's how I got my SAG card, playing a waiter. I'm going to make a movie called Waiter, and it's just going to be entirely about other people, but I will pop in periodically.
Is it going to just be the all-male version of that film Waitress that got turned into a musical?
Oh, written by Sarah Bareilles. Yes, it will be that. It will absolutely.
So just Waiter.
Waiter, yeah.
Do you code switch in your part so you can be Blackish?
I do not.
Will, when we have the old days, we would have the TV guide and we could check the episode description. But if I go on the DVR, I have YouTube TV. I'll send you what it says that episode's about, and or do you not even know what it's about? You just
well,
know
that's
what
the
your
thing.
scene was
That's
about.
where I got mixed up. Was when I filmed it, it was episode 802, so season 8,
Right.
episode 2, but it had the title of the episode on the call sheet, and
Right.
I could have gone and looked at that and crossed it with whatever it said, like IMDb said was playing that day. Didn't think to do that. Was like, it's episode 2. I'm in episode 2, and then we're watching the last half of it, and I'm like, I'll probably be in this half.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is not the story that I was part of. And I looked and I was like, fuck, god damn it.
Yeah.
Because nobody tells the actors anything. Like, nobody told me
No,
when
of
I was
course.
cut out of This Is Us. Like, I just told everybody to watch it, and then I wasn't in it. That was a good time. So then I go and I look at the IMDb schedule of like airing episodes, and I think it's called Bo Mo or something, because her name is Bo Rainbow. And it's next week. So I was like, cool. I did this big promotion. I sent an email blast to casting directors. And I was like, watch me tonight. They don't usually watch those things, but it's just good that they know that you're in stuff. So I'm sure that's fine. But it was really fun for a lot of people to be like, can't wait to watch it. And then have to be like, hey, I fucked up.
I did watch the whole episode, and I was just thinking, I'm like, did Will think he was cast as this other advertising exec who doesn't wear shoes? And I'm like, does Will think that's him? Because look, the show's called Blackish. There's not a lot of characters in the show that could have been you.
It's correct.
You know? But there were 2 or 3. And I was like, maybe Will thought he did that, and then
I was the understudy,
and they reshot all of Will's scenes.
Yeah, it was so awful.
They found some problematic tweets and replaced them.
Well, they found some episodes of this show, and they were like, "We're gonna have to refilm."
They replaced me with Tig Notaro in everything I've ever done.
Someone, and I don't know who, showed them some old bit you did where you were like, this guy from Star Wars that was like vaguely racist. I don't know.
Vaguely.
Oh, those were the days when we had nothing to worry about.
There was nothing to worry about. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And we could have followed that up with talking about the trade negotiators. There's so many racist characters from Star Wars that we could.
To be fair, I mean, it's not an excuse, but they were like kind of racist caricatures to begin with. And
that's what I mean.
Pointing it out.
We're just pointing out what George Lucas did. Yeah.
Do you think that's why he married a black woman to like be like, see, I'm good?
Who, George Lucas?
Yeah.
I mean, people do accuse people of getting in those relationships for that reason. There's a lot of, there's a whole book called Such a Fun Age, which is like a dude who's like a white guy but exclusively dates black girls because he like wants to be like an extension of black culture, which is like a big problem for a lot of white people.
I thought you were going to say that he did it so that he could actually sing along to hip hop with the windows down. So he figured that.
There's a scene where he does say the N-word as like on a date. And she's like, do I check him on this? But he's like that guy who thinks he can kind of like get away with it.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of people. So it's like, that's
we might know one of them. But anyway, Jeff,
Tony,
how is what kind of smashing success is 2022 off to for you, Jeff DeRay?
I have COVID.
No, currently?
Yeah.
Oh,
I can't like
COVID bout.
I mean, I'm healthy. I got sick at the end of last week.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I'm good. And now it's like I'm the dumbest person I know. Like I can't focus and I can't like concentrate for more than like 5 minutes, and then I'll like forget what I'm doing, and I'm just like, oh shit. And I got this like extra hard edit that they gave me that's like stressing me out that I can't like figure out. So it's been pretty shitty this last week. So yeah.
Well, you can't possibly be the dumbest person you know, because the 3 of us all know one person in common for sure.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm just slow as hell.
Vaccinated.
Just like I can't do anything. I was boosted.
Yeah. This other person had none of the things and got COVID.
Yeah, well, that other person would would go on mass transit and like lick subway poles, essentially.
The best part is my whole family has COVID, and we likely got it from this person on my family who's getting married next month in a foreign country. And so now, because my stepdad and like my sister and her fiance, because both my sisters got engaged, they like are still testing positive, but they're healthy or whatever. So now it's like they're gonna maybe get a test on the 24th, and then a doctor's note being like, yeah, they had COVID, but a while ago, and they're still testing positive, so it's cool. I'm like, cool. So you're gonna get like jailed in Mexico? That sounds fun.
Yeah,
take it on the plane.
I mean, look, if you're gonna go to jail, you might as well do it in Mexico because
I should give them all David's number because he might still have that CIA guy's number.
Canadian CIA.
Yeah.
The CCIA.
Well, I don't want to bore Bladtcast Nation. However, I have been doing that for 472 episodes, 73, because this is 474. So why would I stop now? But I do need to do a little bit of a reset and bring Will and Jeff up to speed. So this is Thursday, the 13th, as you and I are talking. Yes. And that means it's exactly 53 weeks since the biggest holiday of our mutual friend's life, January 6th. But in any case, I last Thursday, I embarked on a trip, my first flight in 3 years. I have had 10 days booked in, not booked, but, I had plans throughout the course of 10 days in New York City and New Jersey, very exciting places on the East Coast. And Thursday morning, I did go to the airport and I did get on a plane. And I had a stopover in Phoenix. And, when you're up in the air, unless you're like a millionaire and you pay for that in-flight texting service, when you are on the ground, you get all caught up on emails and texts. So I had sent some texts to my wife, just here I am on the plane, out the window. Oh, the kids like seeing it. So I get a series of texts, and it's like, oh, the kids really like seeing the airplane. My mom has COVID. Lucy has COVID. Felix has COVID. So instead of going to New York, my connecting flight was going to go to Newark, New Jersey. Instead I drove home 6 hours from Phoenix to Burbank. One-way rental. Shout out to Gina at Avis, who gave me a Mustang. And if there's any silver lining, I hit Waffle House on my way out of town. And honestly, nice. I think that probably cleaned out my system of any.
And Roscoe's on the way in.
Well, I should have, but yeah. I'm still. Roscoe's will be my celebration sometime next week when the kids go back to school. So yeah, and we had all this stuff in place where look at this, David House, just letting me know in the chat. Everyone get well, stay hydrated. I hope you're staying hydrated, Jeff. Kids are okay. Gene Beretta wants to know. That's the first point. Yes, the kids are fine. Felix at no time ever really seemed sick.
Because he's old enough for the vaccine, right?
Yeah, he's double vaxxed. Right. They 6-year-olds don't get it boosted yet. I got boosted. My wife got boosted. But so yeah, and Lucy had a mild fever last week. And so she went to school on Monday, was completely healthy. It was fine. We had all gotten tested on Sunday before the kids went back to school. Got our negative test results. Great. Happy first day of school. Lucy wasn't feeling well on Tuesday. Fever. We're like, well, that's symptom number one is fever.
Yeah.
So we all got tested on Tuesday. We all got negative test results on Tuesday. So Lucy still had the fever. So she stayed home, but Felix actually went to school on Wednesday. And I'm sorry, what was your question?
You said, so she tested negative. Mm-hmm. Lucy did too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. On Tuesday. So this is Tuesday that Lucy, Felix, Heather, and myself all tested.
Tuesday afternoon.
We got tested, and it was Tuesday morning, and Felix went to school on Wednesday, and Wednesday night, I packed up, got ready to go, and I travel like a professional. I actually had someone on the New York side who it was explaining why they wouldn't be seeing me that evening. Was just like, oh, how'd you get your luggage? And I'm like, luggage, carry on, come on, you didn't check a bag.
Who does that anymore?
For 10 days in the winter? Come on. Yeah. Really? How many clothes do I really need to bring? So, yeah. And it was all sorted out that even though Lucy was feeling a little under the weather, Heather's mom was going to come and take her down to their house for a couple of days. They were going to watch Lucy while she recuperated. And then Felix and Heather were going to head down there after he was done with school on Friday. And then my mother-in-law testing positive was the first monkey wrench. Then Felix's school had just sent home rapid tests on Wednesday. Actually, they came home. So Heather used them, and anybody who's rapid tested knows that it's and look, anybody who's ever waited for those results on a pregnancy test, you kind of wait and you're like, oh, it's kind of faint. Oh, is it going to get darker, or is it there? You know, these were big bright lines that were like positive. So, you know, Heather had a little minor freak out, and I was like, well, 6 hours of the best babysitter that my parents ever used, television. And the kids were fine. Felix has always felt fine. Lucy has felt pretty good since Friday. And so we couldn't get PCR tests until Saturday. And Lucy, Felix, and Heather all tested positive.
Oof.
This guy tested negative. So I was like, yep, that Waffle House cleaned out my system. But
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What blood type are you?
I wish that wasn't such a hard question. Well, let me finish the story because it's not going to matter in a second, Jeff.
Okay.
Because I had
spoilers. Come on.
I had also,
sorry guys, I flipped to the end.
I also had gotten some of those Amazon sells these tests that they're PCR tests. They come with a prepackaged, pre-labeled box. You just drop them off at UPS. You get the results the next day. So I did one of those. And that day I tested positive. So there. And, teacher says every time you ring a bell, somebody tests positive for COVID. That's what my teacher said.
That's my favorite part of It's a Wonderful Life.
I know. Yeah. You and I were trading messages about It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, boy, Clarence, hope you're vaccinated.
George Bailey is the only person in Bedford Falls who got vaxxed. I'm just guessing. But anyway,
the reason I asked about the blood shit is because my mom somehow has not tested positive through all of this.
Yeah.
And she's like, it's because I'm O positive.
I'm not O positive. I'm positive that I'm not O positive. But I'm like A or B or something. And you'd think at almost 46, I should know what blood type I am. Nope, I don't. I was just like, they'll just cut me open and test it sometime, if they need to know. I then tested again yesterday, negative. The kids are negative. And sort of what Will was talking about. No, sorry, Jeff, what you were talking about in terms of your sister, whoever can go off to Mexico. Both of my kids' schools are like, it's so different because like we had contact with kids who had a sibling test positive back in the fall, and those kids were gone for 2 solid weeks. And now it's like, well, how are you feeling? Not feeling good. Well, if you test positive, he can come back as long as he's vaccinated. It's like, well, sorry, if you test negative, you can come back. I was like, oh, he tests positive. It's like, all right, well, test him again in a few days. And the CDC now says that after you test positive, I think you do 5 days, and you don't need to get a PCR test because those are more reliable and more accurate. So go ahead and get an antigen test because they're not as sensitive. And if he's negative on one of those, he can come back to school. So we decided that we would wait till he was feeling better. He has like a minor cough. Lucy has a little bit of a sniffle, but we're like, we'll do the stricter tests. Let's not skate into, we don't want to. And my daughter's preschool did basically close, I think, because of not her classroom, not the whole school, because they have them all separated there. So I think that we brought this upon her class, and so anybody watching, sorry, yeah, it was us. But we were very careful in the way that you still go out and do stuff. We did go to Santa's Village before Christmas. We did go to Legoland for New Year's. And honestly, we felt pretty good in all of those places. There was like one time we were eating inside at a restaurant. We're like, oh, this is a little crowded, but even that wasn't crowded like the old days. We do believe that we came into contact with, let's just say, a family member who had recently been somewhere, which is fine. However, that person might not have informed us of the fact that they felt stuffy and were sneezing and stuff like that. And someone who usually doesn't get sick. And it was only after the fact where they were like, oh yeah, well, we just thought it was a cold. So that was unfortunate, but I think that that's kind of we could have gotten it anywhere. It could have been, it could have been not going to an amusement park. It could have been, it could have been like, I could have dipped my mask below my nose at Vaughn's, to have to stick my face in the donut bin and just go bobbing for donuts like I usually do.
Target, pull the mask down, smell a candle. I'm like, is there COVID in here?
Yeah.
Hope not. Sea breeze smells good though. Might buy that.
So so that was it was a very interesting / not particularly fun turn of events. But we are glad that ultimately everybody's feeling healthy at this point. The question is whether or not Felix might go back to school tomorrow, Friday. He'll definitely go back on Tuesday.
And then the long weekend.
Yeah, that's kind of where
he's got to do some schoolwork at home, I imagine. But yeah.
Oh yeah, he's been doing the schoolwork at home, but we're like a day behind on the schoolwork, and he gets up before. So I go downstairs with him. We have breakfast, and then he's done with his previous day's work by 7 a.m. So, nice. But yeah, and Jeff, you and I don't know. I mean, I guess a big part of this is, look, you literally can get it anywhere. There, you can think about places you might have gotten it, people you might have gotten it from, but you don't really know. I saw somebody tweet that I wish that part of COVID testing was that, when you get a positive result, it tells you who gave it to you, because then you knew for sure who to blame. It would be interesting if they could say, well, here's the day where you probably got it. Cause then you're like, all right, I know what I did,
it feels like they're like, because of vaccines and everything. And I mean, I know this is some people's hypothesis, but like, are we entering the, like, it's just like another flu thing?
Well,
now?
That's kind of where I was going with
the Omicron variant. It is like supposed to be quick in, quick out, meaning like you don't get too sick and it doesn't last too long, but it's the most transmissible and it's infecting the most people.
Right.
Yeah, it's like that. That's kind of what I was going to say, is that with this Omicron one is like, it's like pretty much everybody's going to get it. And then people who don't get it, they're the ones who, there could be like a wave of people getting sick in a few months from it. But the worst day that I had, I remember it was like, I don't know, it was like 1/8 of having a sore throat, of having like strep throat. And I remember just, I was saying to a friend, I'm like, if I woke up every day and I felt like this, I'd get used to it in, like a week.
Well, it's like, I mean, the amount of times we used to all go to work sick and just live our life sick, just go places and drink and be in busy public. But now, like, I think people in general, like, even if it's COVID or not, people are like, yeah, I'll work from home today, or like, I won't go to the bars. But like in the past, I was like, I'm dying, but I can't, I got to work. That's life. Like, I should never take a break. So hopefully it teaches, it's taught us to be like, it's okay.
Well, I mean, for God's sake, at least take a day, I mean, it's, and I mean, a lot of people being able to work from home. I mean, Jeff, you were talking that you have something that you have to do work-wise, but the fact of the matter is that you don't have to go somewhere to do it. So as much of a, task as that might be to overcome, I assume the fact that at least you can kind of do it on your schedule and, not have to head out into the world, at least makes it a little easier, right?
Yes and no. I think with this one, it sucks because with the lack of concentration, I put it on myself. So it's like, then don't feel like I can stop working. So I'm spending like my whole life sitting, staring at a screen, accomplishing nothing.
And then it's like, you don't get the rest that you need. Like
exactly.
You shouldn't, even though you're at home, doesn't necessarily mean they're like, well, it's better, it's easier. It's like you should probably not work.
Well, it's twofold too, because I mean, I'm already, I basically live in a studio apartment, right? I got the basement, which is my room, and there's the bathroom down there. So it's like I don't really go anywhere, and my desk with all my equipment's down there. And then because my stepdad was the first one here who got sick, he was up here, so we kept the door closed down there. Like I just haven't gone anywhere hardly at all in like a week and a half or so. And the last place I went was like this record store that I've been going to.
Nice. That's a good place to go.
Yeah. It's like all old analog records, nice and musty.
Nice. Yeah. Did you go somewhere to like wait to get a test, or did you do a home test?
I haven't actually been tested, but it's Natasha has, because she has to for work.
Right.
So it was just one of those ones where I'm like, I'm sick. You have the same symptoms I have a day after I have them to the T. I have COVID. You tested positive for COVID.
Yeah.
I have COVID. I'm not like, there's no point in wasting my time and money going to get a positive test when it's not going to affect where I go, because I stay in the exact same place I would if I was quarantining or if I was living my life.
There could be a point where you might want to know if it's gone, but that might not even be a week or two. You know what I mean? That could be like, if you're going to go to just, a get together, you were going to do something, you were going to see someone, maybe you're like, all right, let me just make sure. But yeah, I know what you're saying. And
well, the problem is so the PCR test, right? My stepdad has been testing positive for like multiple weeks and has been completely symptom free now. Right? I don't know if it's been that long, but he's been testing positive for like a while and totally symptom free, to the extent where they're telling him, you can test positive for 90 days with a PCR test after this.
Well, and then that must be why my kids' schools are like, you should do the antigen test, because it's like, if you have it actively and you have it bad, it's going to come up positive. And I honestly, until you said that, I didn't realize you could test positive for that long.
That's what they were told. So, I mean,
I'm sure.
I just don't want to say like, this is true information.
No, but it's look, somebody said it, who at least knows. Yeah. And, and the thing that was interesting was talking about the little like minor, allergies, sore throat thing. The day that I tested negative was the day that I felt so much worse than the day that I felt that I tested positive. And, my first thought was, okay, well, the kids and Heather all tested positive. I tested negative. Maybe it was a bad test, but I will tell you, I mean, we've been getting these kind of tests up the nose for a while now. This was the most thorough one I'd ever had. This lingered and went so deep that I'm surprised I didn't come afterwards. I mean, it was seriously like, I was like, do we smoke a cigarette? I mean, what's for real? It was like, oh, he got up there. I'm like, all right. So if I got it, I got it. But, and then I did the take home one, which, was a self-test, which I definitely came after that one, but I did the self-test and then like that one comes back positive, and I'm like, well, now I don't know what to do. So I needed the tiebreaker test. So I took the kids yesterday, but also because I want to know, like, especially with Felix not having really ever been sick and Lucy having felt well for, at this point now, it's like 6 days, maybe 5 days, So and I mean, ultimately, I think it's like all you can do is be as prepared as you can. If that includes getting boosted. I know a lot of friends in other parts of the country where the boosters aren't available for everybody just yet. So I have a lot of friends like my age, and even though I'm elderly, haven't been boosted yet because they're not allowed to where they live. So, and I did that, and all you can do is test. And it's like, honestly, though, we did test, and then we sent Felix back to school on Wednesday because his test was negative, So, I mean, there's only so much you can do. And, like we were saying, this Omicron is so contagious, but in the way that the symptoms are fairly minor for the most part. And Jean Beretta has some great advice that just be a miserable recluse like me. That, by the way, miserable recluse would be a great name for a podcast. If Jean, I know you have the Beretta Brothers, which
I thought it was oh, fuck! I was just gonna make a joke and I forgot the guy's name. God damn it! Never mind. I interrupted you for nothing.
That's
Springsteen. Thought it was a Springsteen album. Miserable Recluse.
I was gonna say, Miserable Recluse sounds like a synonym for Bon Iver.
Describes the music pretty well.
Yeah, that's the target demographic as well. Yeah. So and the thing is too, it's like people that I know who've tested positive, who are one single or sometimes live alone. They're like, oh my God, I've watched all of Netflix. Help, I need something. No, I'm still an episode behind on Book of Boba Fett. So
you're not making,
but
boy, you're not missing much.
That's what I'm hearing. By the way, Zia really appreciated this detail of the story. That I before my flight Wednesday night, I downloaded episode 2 of Book of Boba Fett to watch on the flight, and I sit down on the flight and click on Disney Plus, download not complete. So I didn't even get that part right. So like I couldn't even watch Book of Boba Fett on my flight.
Damn.
So in any case, yeah, and I want to watch Peacemaker. I know that premiered today.
Today.
Yeah. Right. On How About Max, which is what Felix calls it. He called the app used to be HBO Now, and he used to call that How About Now, and now he knows that it's How About Now. How About Max? Ready? How About Max? How About Now? How About Max? How About Now? How About Go? Remember, there also used to be How About Go?
HBO Go. That's right. How About Go?
Yeah, there were all these things. There were all these different ways that people could be disappointed at the lighting on Game of Thrones.
Maybe HBO can start an ad campaign with Hobo Max for HBO Max. Just like a destitute guy who's like, I can panhandle for enough for an HBO Max subscription. And I watch it here on my Obama phone.
I really wish it was called Hobo Fights and not Bum Fights, because I could have made a HBO.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, there was a minute where bum fights were
very bad, horrible
allowed
thing
to
that
happen.
People were doing.
I like conceptually, I was just like, the act of making bum fights seems reprehensible, but the idea of somebody should do bum fights and putting it into motion, that's kind of brilliant. Sometimes you have to, like, even bad ideas. Sometimes you're like, well, it's as ideas go, it seems interesting, but then actually paying homeless people to fight.
Here's the thing on homeless people fighting. I get
which by the way, Jeff, we've been waiting 474 weeks to talk about this. So finally,
I know that you were waiting for this hot take.
Yes.
First of all, I get the voyeurism. They're like, oh, two people fighting just in general. It's like, oh, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
And two people with nothing to lose. You're like, oh, what the hell's going to go on here? But like, the impression I always got of those videos and that whole setup was basically like, oh, you're straight up Leo DiCaprio in that scene from Django Unchained where the two black guys are fighting to the death. Like, you're that disgusting person who's just like, yes, you are below me.
Exactly. Here's fucking like $10 or whatever they throw. Yeah.
Wow.
Assholes. That was like the dawn of what was the website at the time that it was on?
The bum fights was on
before YouTube. It was like I can't.
Yeah,
remember. My brain's not working.
They were tapes. Weren't they tapes that you could buy first?
Were they?
What was it?
Bum
Steak
fights.
and cheese.
That's so fucked up.
There was like I feel like there used to be some gross website. It was called something like Steak and Cheese, and it was just like one of these blog like websites where it was just a bunch of disgusting pictures or videos and all sorts of fucked up shit.
Do you know why you associate disgusting website with Steak and Cheese?
Philadelphia.
Yep, you knew exactly where I was going. Is because what is the signature sandwich of Philadelphia? Which, by the way, part of my trip would have included swinging by and getting an authentic cheesesteak because I was going to visit some relatives in South Jersey. Whit Whiz. Yeah, I when I order them out here in California, I always go provolone. But if I'm back there, I feel like I got to get it Whit Whiz. So that's probably what you're thinking. Speaking of Philadelphia, Gene has a very specific question for Will that I didn't think of, but I will definitely ask. What were the protocols like on Blackish? You know, I have our friend Caitlin, who has been on this show and on Marvel Movie Talk a couple of times. She has worked on a number of sets, including WandaVision, and she was working, I think, almost done with the Godfather show for Paramount Plus.
Paramount's done a Godfather show?
It's a show about, I think, making the Godfather, not a show about
like
the actual. It's not. Yeah. It's like
okay. I was like, oh god, did we?
No. It's like Feud or one of those shows. It's about making.
Oh, but it's
something.
a dramatic. Just
I think it's a dramatized.
Okay.
Yeah, making.
Are you sure that it's not The Godfather on country music television, where it's just about your brothers in Christ helping make sure that your children know about his Lord's
the Godfather, like a nice Godfather.
You reminded me about the group of people that I saw at the park earlier today, but I'll have to get to that in a moment. Jeff, Will.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it? My understanding is that on sets, like everybody on the crew wears masks, and then when cameras are rolling, actors obviously take them off.
Yeah, I've done now 3 Pam and Tommy, American Crime Story, and Blackish. All like.
Wait a minute, you're in Pam and Tommy?
Very briefly, yeah.
Do you play Tommy's huge hog?
No, that'd be great.
You're not tall enough.
And just they cut to me,
right.
just like.
There's no way you're not. Yeah, you're just not big enough. I'm sorry.
You play the guy from the Van Dutch documentary
when they're like.
Sorry. So you've been on a few sets, Will.
Yeah, and it's all the same. Where like cast has masks and face shields for like in between takes and kind of going from sets, fuck up your makeup and stuff. So we have a little like plastic shield when we're not wearing our mask, but then when we're like braked or whatever, they take us back to our trailer and we just stay in there alone, which is like it's so bad.
They bring me all the food I want and all the drinks I could ever want.
This is like such a even beyond first world problems, because it's like an actor booking a job problem, but like the grind to actually book a job is incredibly demoralizing and so brutal that by the time you get there, it's like a tiny fucking room with like something that isn't even the size of a bed and a bathroom that doesn't work, and it's like hot, and they're like, just stay in here for like 6 to 8 to maybe 10 hours until we're ready to use you, and you're like, cool, sweet. But anyway, crews got their mask on. People, there's COVID officer people who like come into rooms and there's like, there's 2 extra people in here. Some people need to leave, so people have to leave.
Caitlin and my friend Alexa, who I know you've met, they were COVID officers on the not the reshoots, but the wrap up shooting on WandaVision because they couldn't finish before the pandemic. So like all the stuff in the town square that they did, the different eras on that show, they filmed all that in LA, whereas everything else had been filmed in Atlanta. So they were the COVID protocol officers, and so it sounds like an interesting job, but also, man, you're like the hall monitor. Like,
it sucks. People always look at them like, oh, Jesus.
That's like being the fashion police on an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race.
These 2 dresses look the same. We got it. One of these got to change. So like, I don't know, and it's one of those things where it's like everything is so COVID-y now that it just kind of is another thing, and like I don't know when especially productions are going to not have to do any of that stuff because there's such a inherently crowded thing. Like, when are we ever going to not wear, you know what I mean? Like, who fucking knows now anymore?
Well, if you want to not wear a mask, if our pal Jason Blair was in the chat, he would give us frontline reporting from Texas. And I understand in Florida, it's actually against the law to wear a mask at any time. I'm exaggerating.
I thought it was all about personal freedoms, and if a couple and their kid got kicked out of a restaurant because they were wearing masks, and this guy was like, "We got no mask policy here," and they were like, oh, "Okay, well, we just wanted to eat some food."
The Bandito clause.
What?
The Bandito clause.
I don't understand that joke. Sometimes things are over my head.
That's all right.
Bandito is a Hispanic term for a bandit.
Yeah,
and bandits often covered their face with masks.
I see what you're saying.
To hide their identity.
Okay. Anyway, so you know,
visualize Daredevil episodes 1 and 2, the way that he dressed before he had the suit. You know, season 1.
Reverse.
Yeah, but it's just that. Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
But I thought they didn't care about him before he wore the suit.
That's probably true. Anyway, sorry, we're getting
no. So it was not as crazy as I think people might think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's strict and it is, and you got to test 50 fucking million times. You know, tested like 2-3 times before the shoot, tested day of. It was pretty rigorous.
Yeah, but I have a friend who does wardrobe for the Tonight Show back in New York, and she's one of the first people I knew who like started like working in a studio again. And it went from, I think that they tested 2 times a week back in the like late 2020
the OG COVID days.
Yeah. And now especially because there was, ever since the week where they had to like shut down an entire episode of SNL, now they test every single day. So, you know, and everyone tests every day. So, and I think a lot of the talk show hosts have all like cycled through having COVID at some point, you know, and I mean, I think that we're at the point where we've had the Thanos variant because it's inevitable. I think that we all just get it. And, you know, and then, you know, I like to think that it's mild because I got 2 shots and a booster, but anybody who's unvaxxed, if they get it and it's mild, I hope that happens for them too. I never want anybody to get it bad. You know, I always hope that everybody does okay. I've known some people who are vaxxed and boosted. You know, Roxy Stryer been on this show many times. She got it like really bad, but she was fully vaxxed and had been boosted like a month earlier. So, you know, I think it just people react differently to it. And Jeff, I think that you're exhibiting the same amount of energy with just as many rapid one-liners. That if you didn't tell us that you had COVID, I don't think we would have guessed.
Good.
But did you delete your Twitter, by the way? Are you off Twitter now?
I deleted that.
You did?
Because I had to tag Do-Ray Jeff because I couldn't find.
But Do-Ray Jeff is still around. You've just fully become. You've let Do-Ray Jeff take you over entirely.
I had the other one as like a bookmark on one of my things, so sometimes I'd be tempted to click on it.
Fair.
And so I deleted it, so I would no longer have the temptation.
Just because people's stupid tweets would make you frustrated.
That, and it's also part of the problem was. I mean, I probably could have looked into it, but at one point I remember being like, I should delete some of my old tweets because they're just stupid jokes.
I wiped my entire Twitter history, but somehow there's still ones that pop up that are like still around, like replies to like Rob Lorich and fucking old Bladtcast replies, and I'm like, how did these not get deleted? I don't understand how.
Well,
these
because ones... maybe because it's a reply. Don't worry,
it's just bullshit about like old horror movies. They're not. Nothing's, and that's the thing. No, I'm not actually worried about there being.
I screenshotted all the problematic ones. Don't worry.
Good. Okay,
that's fine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about anybody really going through it, or I mean, look, if anybody's dumb enough to think a joke represents you at this point,
right,
which is everyone, yeah, great. I don't know what to tell you.
But if I'm ever up for the right kind of job, I will definitely delete my Twitter before I even interview. I'll just like,
I haven't gone like looking for a new job, but I've thought about it. So I was like, I should delete this now.
But that's the thing is like, more than being worried, I like the idea of like the fresh start was kind of like what was appealing to me. I was like, it's kind of cool to clean out old Instagram posts and just kind of like tighten things up, and was like, it's nice to, I don't know. I said so many fucking stupid things that were lame over the course of like 10 years that I would read old jokes and be like, this isn't even funny. It's not offensive at all. It's just bad. It's a bad joke.
Yeah. No, I mean, and at some point you might have just posted something that you might have believed at one time, but you don't. Like at some point you might have thought love is forever. And obviously there's no way that that's true. So,
sure, listen, it's true. A lot of pictures, a lot of posts.
I'm laughing because
that's really the real reason I did it. I was getting remarried.
If Ken were with us right now, you know that he would still be laughing so hard at that, because that always seems to be the stuff that sets him off.
That I got divorced. that I was in a relationship that didn't
LOL.
work out.
Remember when that relationship you had ended?
Remember that time you got married and you thought it like meant something, and then it turns out like you're a bitch and you fucking got divorced? Good for you.
Remember how those vows you made were a lie?
Remember
I did.
Your old religion you quit.
I did have a Facebook memory of because we did 2 episodes that were the ones with the wives, and one of those popped up recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that we did that. But you got one of those now. You got a wife I haven't met.
That's true. Jeff met her very briefly at a bar before COVID. We had like a friend gathering, and that was like February or early March 2020. Like it was like right before.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's still a handful of people who haven't met her, and now she's on the East Coast until the summer. So
Jeff will likely see her again before I ever see her the first time.
I'm going back out there in February, Jeff. If you're COVID free by then and no one's visiting you.
That's when I'm supposed to be going to Mexico.
Oh shit!
Nice. Will you go Bandito style just to bring it full circle?
See.
And the delightful Gene in Philly says congratulations. And Dominica Saxon, I'm glad I got divorced, or I would have never met Mrs. Saxon.
Yeah,
26 and a half years and going strong.
Is that how old she is?
Oh man, I love that. That's beautiful. 26 and a half years old.
Oh gosh.
Our pal Jason Blair was married right after college for about 1 year, and he's been with his wife Cheryl now for a very long time.
Yeah.
Even our former employer, Mr. Dennis Miller, he has been with his wife Carolyn for now it's like it's more than 30 years. But a simple Google search will reveal that he had been married at some point before that.
Yeah.
Some people, and by the way, let me just point out, our friend Zia Anderson was married for 1 week. That's before she is now married to her husband.
She did the Brittany and K-Fed thing. Yeah.
Oh, totally. And by the way, there's no way, I don't know anything about her former spouse. Zia was definitely the K-Fed in that relationship. 100%. I'll send this clip to her and she'll be like, oh yeah, totally. I was definitely the K-Fed.
I just think that like marriage is special when it's like a promise you make with the person you're with, but as like an institution and a piece of paper, like people are too precious about the idea that divorce is like some fucking like spit in God's face bullshit. It's like, it's just an expensive breakup. It's fine. Fucking accept the amount of people who were like, well, we stayed together. We didn't get divorced. I'm like, yeah, but you've hated each other for 30 years. Imagine being with someone you didn't hate for those 30 years. If you're not happy and you can't work it out and you try everything you can do and it's just not working, get a fucking divorce and grow the fuck up. God.
Yeah. It should be like, when you guys used to, when you were kids and you would read the funny pages, the Sunday comics, and maybe you were looking for like Calvin and Hobbes or Far Side or whatever. There's been one called Andy Cap. And Andy Cap is like basically jokes about this guy who basically like beats his wife.
Oh,
mean, not
LOL.
No, but he's in this like this terrible relationship and he hates his wife. And then there was the other one called the Lockhorns, where like they clearly hate each other. And they're like, well, why are they married? And it's almost like that's kind of the thing. And look, it gets messier when people have kids, and I can see that making it a harder decision. But yeah, and I may or may not know a couple who stayed together for the dogs for a while before they finally realized that they couldn't do it anymore. But may or may not. That's all I'm saying about that. So yeah, I mean, I think that and yeah, Dominica Saxon says, I can't believe we used to laugh at Andy Cap. I mean, he has his own delicious brand of hot fries that you can buy.
At the same time, with the Honeymooners, where literally the tagline is about spousal abuse, straight to the moon.
I'm gonna fucking hit you so hard you're gonna be in space, bitch.
Well, and remember when
show,
Trey Parker and Matt Stone did the That's My Bush, which was the Bush family.
I remember when that came out, it was one of those things where I hadn't heard any marketing for it previously.
Yeah.
And then he looked so much like Bush. I was I was confused for a minute. I was like, this is a joke in a show, right? Like this isn't real, right? Because That really looks like him, and I'm very confused. And
but it was like the idea was it was like clearly That's My Bush, the series that did not come back for a second season because apparently after 9/11 somebody thought that show wouldn't be funny anymore. Whatever.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for saying what we're all thinking. But and it was obviously it was just a parody of the conventions of the sitcom, and it was like, oh, but what if it's the president and all that? And the tagline on that show was, Laura, one of these days I'm gonna, and then the audience would say it with him, punch you in the face, because that's really what the Honeymooners was. Yeah. It's like, Alice, one of these days I am gonna break a fucking bottle over your head.
I will say that Trey Parker, Matt Stone, I mean, besides a couple of South Park episodes that actually have been taken down, like, are pretty uncancelable because of the fact that they remain in this weird, like, meta comedy way that they are inherently the people who are like, yeah, that's the whole point of like why we make the show. Like, that. Have you watched any of the post-COVID South
I saw
Park?
both of them. Yeah, I thought that they were. Have you seen either of
I couldn't
those,
get
Jeff?
over and lost my mind about the fact that Butters had become this like NFT selling mastermind. I was just great. Like lost. I haven't seen South Park in years, and I was like, this shit is still so funny.
That's why those were so good. You didn't have to keep up. It did tie directly into what happened in recent seasons, but it didn't matter. And and in terms of Trey and Matt, like, episodes of South Park that are not available are not because Trey and Matt took them down. It's, corporations like Viacom, who owns Comedy Central, and Warner Brothers, who owns HBO Max, that, but if you bought the DVDs when they came out, you have those episodes with Muhammad in them, with like the superhero
super
friends.
Best Friends.
Super Best Friends. Yeah. And, you might not want to advertise that you have those in your house. But some people might have them. But anyway, and it's, I don't know. I mean, I guess we were just talking sort of about the institution of marriage, and, the starting point for portrayal of marriage. Sometimes, it can be that. And, I think that, if you look at like Married with Children at face value, you think like, oh my God, they can't stand each other. It's like, no, they definitely annoy each other. But like, how many of the problems are solved with like, all right, let's go upstairs, So it's like they like each other enough. you know, they've just been around each other.
They bang it out.
Yeah. I think that's a little bit that way. More realistic.
What if they just go upstairs to a padded room where they abuse each other?
Married with
What if they do? I mean, that's the reunion series we need.
Yeah, totally.
Season 12 of Married with Children. Let's get it.
Why don't they just make, like, how they love to make a sequel to franchises that don't need sequels? They should make one to that 50 Shades of Grey where she's just like, no, stop it. And then he keeps doing it, and then she sues him for sexual assault and takes his millions, and then doesn't have to put up with his shit anymore.
Yeah. And yeah. And honestly, if he's really into like submissive stuff, probably get off on it. I mean, I've heard about there's those like services that offer like, dominatrix submissive, where it's like they'll call you and, tell you to drain your bank account and send all your money to them. And that's apparently people are into it. I mean, crazy stuff out there. Not well balanced, good old fashioned US of A style. Sorry, I'm reading something. Marriage. David House. Man is 103, wife is 101. They go to their attorney to seek a divorce. Attorney asks, why now? Answer is, we're waiting for our kids to die.
The hell done.
Speaking of 103 and 101, a lot of people were, of course, covering this. Betty White was one of these beloved figures that people thought was so funny, and she hung in there. And much like George Burns, who had a big 100th birthday celebration planned, passing away just short of it. And that's it's like, oh, that's too bad they didn't make it to 100. But God, when you've got like 99 and 7/8 years of life, and when you're in show business for 50 years, like Will Sterling will be, obviously, and we'll all be part of the Wiltourage for 50.
Exactly. One of those days.
Wait, she was probably in show business for like 75 years. I don't know why I said 50.
I mean, after all the attention that she's gotten for 100 years, do you think that like a show like that for Betty White is like getting sung happy birthday at a restaurant? She just died of embarrassment.
What if that was the official cause? And I thought that obviously, you know, when something like that happens, it's sad. But of course, much sadder was the passing of Bob Saget, who had very limited interaction with, but, you know, chatted with a couple of times. One of the last guests on Dennis's podcast, the Dennis Miller Option, was Saget, and he was like trying to convince Dennis that he didn't want to like quit. He's like, "Oh, but you're so good at this. Why don't you keep doing it?" And he's like, No. You see that barn? Yeah, I've already sold it to Ellen for $45 million.
That's right. God damn it.
You see that barn? Yeah, I don't own it anymore. So, and again, public record, not telling tales out of school. It's out there.
It's true.
But you know, and just a great, you know, a very funny guy. And I posted on Facebook that I think the way that he would want us to remember him is this clip, and it was his clip from The Aristocrats. And a fairly conservative person that I know who lives in Mississippi commented on that video and said, I loved Bob Saget, I loved his stand-up, but not that video. And I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I did it. Is specifically for you.
There's something about that video, rewatching that, because that movie came out when I was in high school, but that joke's been around for a long time. It's like we're looking at today, you know, cancel culture stuff and tweets from 10 years ago. When he tells this joke, it's like, it's so clear that his version and brand of offensive is like, just say whatever disgusting thing can pop into my head, but it doesn't feel like intentional in terms of like he used to believe some kind of crazy thing, or he was a racist, or he was a misogynist, or a homophobe, or sexist. He's just saying objectively disgusting, shocking things because that's the nature of the joke, not because that's who Bob Saget was as a person. That for some reason, like, despite how gross it is on the surface, hearing that and having like met him a couple of times, I'm like, he's just saying shit. It's not, it feels like that's the way dirty comedy sort of used to work, where it was like, once it got personal and you realize like, oh, this person is a piece of shit. It's like, yeah, that person deserves to be canceled if they're not going to make a change. But like Bob Saget was just saying like objectively gross things because
it was sort of like the old style of dirty comedians. Not that his act seemed old or dated in any way, but I do remember like his act, you know, 30 years ago included stuff like where he's like, you know, something like my girlfriend of 9 years, that's her age, you know, just very deadpan, say stuff like that, which, like, you know, like, no, child abuse is not funny. We get that, but that doesn't mean that joke is not funny. And, you know, and he would be like, no, but my new girlfriend, I'm nuts over her. And he was standing. And so he would put his hand right below his nuts and be like, she's this tall. And it was just like the very deadpan way that he was saying very inappropriate things, you know? And it's like, yeah, you don't think badly of him because of the styles of jokes that he told. I mean, and, you know, I mean, you walk away from that Aristocrats movie and he and Gilbert Gottfried have, you know, some of the best tellings of just the point is to be the most reprehensible, dirty joke ever told.
That's the goal.
So you just go with it. But Will, you posted something sort of very sweet and heartfelt. And I know we don't usually do that on this show, but I was like, I want Will to kind of talk a little bit about just, you know, the personal connection, because to me, my connection to Bob Saget is him as the comedian that people didn't expect to be so dirty,
right?
Because the shows that he were on were a bit young for me by the point that
I remember you hated Full House. You were like, I fucking hate that show.
I did, well, just because it didn't speak to, you know, if you were older than DJ Tanner, if you were older than Candace Cameron Bure, the show probably wasn't for you.
Right. I was right in the wheelhouse. You know, when I was a little kid, I grew up. The show I think started in '87. I was born in '87, so like I grew up on reruns and then the rest of the new episodes. And it was just like there was a handful of sitcoms as a kid that were like the fabric of my DNA growing up, like Fresh Prince, Full House, Family Matters, The Cosby Show. Unfortunately, that doesn't. That's like one of those things where I'm like, fuck, this had such a big influence on me, and that person ended up being just like an actual piece of shit. Where like Bob Saget told dirty jokes, but was a very good human being.
Yeah.
But yeah, that show was so like defining for me and my sister that it was like the way that we told time, that how we understood time. A half hour was an episode of Full House, and so our mom would like take us to meetings we didn't want to go to, and we'd ask her like
AA meetings for you and your sister.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we asked like how many episodes of Full House will this be, and she'd be like, well, 1, 2, 3, and so like the way that we judged telling time was based on a Full House episode, and so to grow up and know that he was like this dirty, foul comedian. When I started doing stand up, I remember I wanted to like, when I first started, I was like, I'm going to try to keep it clean. Cause like not that many people do. And inevitably I was like, this shit is fucking boring. Like at least swearing and making like sex jokes is funny. And I never got, to that level. And that's why I'm saying like, I don't think there's any old tweets that I thought were so hilarious and secretly misogynist. But like, I remember when I met him the first time, I was like, oh, he's such a nice guy. And then he was on a couple other podcasts and was like consistently always just like such a sweet guy. And everybody like loved being around him. And it was just like always a pleasure for everybody in the room, and anybody who'd known him before. It was like so good for them to see him again. Like he just had that energy, and I think that's one thing. That's the difference is like when you're a good person, if you fuck up in the past, but you have a reputation for also being a good, like James Gunn, right? Told some stupid jokes however many years ago, got fired, and everyone was like, what are you doing? He's the nicest guy in the world. Like, why would you do that? And everybody went to bat for him because they were like, he's a kind, good individual, and we can move on past stupid things. That I think that's, if you're a good person above all else, like you're gonna be fine so long as you're not doubling down on your bigotry. And so for Bob Saget to be like a dirty comedian, it was like, yeah, that's the stand-up world. It just is what it is. It was, if you went to stand-up shows, I would tell my friends, like, you're going to be offended in some way. Be prepared. Like, if you're going to come see me perform, like somebody on the stage tonight is going to brutally offend you or your partner or anybody in your group. Like, just be ready for it. Because that's just what people
the time
did.
that I saw you, I was offended by that 16-year-old kid who was telling jokes.
Listen, he had guys getting up there as like telling jokes about high school at the Comedy Store.
No, I 100% agree, but I was still offended by the fact that he was doing it. Jeff, I felt like you were going to jump in with something.
I was just going to say maybe the exception that proves the rule, but like I think a lot of people said that Woody Allen's a good guy. That didn't prove to be true.
That's fair. No, I mean, and look, you can certainly, there are people who have donated a lot of money and done sort of things that you're like, well, they're clearly good people, and then you find out things about them. I mean, it's Michael Jackson would be a good example. It seemed like he did a lot of good things until it turns out like, oh yeah, but he did some really bad things allegedly. But yeah, no, it's definitely a good point. And then you have the true exceptions are, like Jeffrey Epstein. You don't have a lot of people going around like, no, but he was such a great guy.
Such a nice guy. Yeah.
Maybe Trump.
Yeah.
Well, Trump probably said that. Yeah. Yeah. And then Epstein went and suicided himself. So, that's
is that what he did? He suicided himself.
That's what they say. That's what they say. He either suicided himself.
Autoerotic asphyxiation.
Yeah, but I mean, look, the problem was that the sheets that he was found with were 20 years old. So clearly that is not something that he would have been
suspicious.
Into. Yeah, very suspicious. That's how they knew. Yeah, look, he either suicided himself or got suicided. Depending on which story you want to believe.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at it.
Yeah. But and somebody else died recently too, right? I'm forgetting someone, but I knew that Betty White.
Betty White?
And it wasn't Betty White.
Oh, another filmmaker.
No, the guy from the HBO series, Robert Durst.
Oh yeah.
And that led to my great tweet, which was
he died in jail.
The gif of the gif of Fred Durst where I just put, no, guys, sorry, it's not me.
I didn't understand that one. I was like, what is this? But I didn't think about it too hard.
Well, that's all right. It was for people who got it. Yeah.
It's for people who got it.
Yeah, this is for people. That one was for people who got it. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I was on a tweet storm, and it was actually very funny. I saw a few comedians who did exactly the same thing. The first one I saw do it was Jim Norton. He posted something very nice and heartfelt about Bob Saget. And then the next day he posted the exact same thing about Robert Durst, also referring to him as Bob, like word for word. You know, it was like about Robert Durst, you know, and just everybody was like, oh, he was such a kind man. And I don't know, I thought it was funny for people to remember a guy who's clearly so bad. And, you know, the fact that, I don't know.
I heard he had his neighbor in stitches.
Oh, God.
Look, we all know
some other crazy shit, like cut someone's fucking head off and dressed as a woman and pretend to be a mute homeless person.
And then it's like, we all know every mic is a hot mic, and to go take a leak and be like, I killed them all, every one of them. What the fuck are you doing? Like, come on.
I just wanted to see what prison was all about. I was like, yeah, let's give it. Let's see what that's. We need a change of pace.
I mean, the guess is that the whole thing for him, because it was his idea, it was a thrill. It was the thrill of being you can't catch me. You can't do this. I want to dance on the line. I want to wave my gun in the face of the police officer.
That's what
shoot someone on Fifth Ave and no one can stop me. And I think that's what he was doing. That's why he said it out loud, audibly in that bathroom, just to try to test another line, test another water. He may even have known he had that mic hot and wanted to see if they would actually play it or not.
Yeah.
And because he might have just been willing to deal with the consequences, but just been like, let's gamble. Let's roll the dice.
It's definitely serial killer behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, it's the you know, in a movie, it's usually so hard to believe, like, oh, come on, serial killer returning to the scene of the crime. But in actuality, that does happen. And, you know, because they kind of like to see it, and they're like, does anybody know it's me yet? You still don't know it's me, do you? Oh my God, this is fucking amazing. You don't know that it's me.
Speaking of serial killers, did you watch that Dexter show?
I have not watched.
I did. I watched the new season.
I have not watched New Dexter. I understand that some people felt that there's an ending that some people aren't happy with, but also some people are like, well, the original show ended so badly that anything that they like, the feeling is that this is an improvement because it ended so badly. Is that, and just the season as a whole made it the legacy of the show better because it was such garbage when it ended. Does that sound accurate, Jeff?
I would argue, for my tastes, this was infinitely better than the last season of Dexter. Okay. The last season of Dexter sucked hard, and this wasn't perfect, but it hit the beats that it needed to, that they didn't. And I read one thing specific. Oh, never mind. Well, I'll just say this. I read one thing specifically, that the showrunner who came back for this, because he left Dexter when it was doing well early on, always had intended for the ending of this new run to be the ending of Dexter. So it was more of like buttoning up the way it was supposed to have ended.
Yeah, I agree.
So you guys feel like, well, you know, Dominic Saxon chimes in. The new Dexter wasn't as Dexterish as it could have been, but it made up for the old Dexter ending. Yeah, I think that
that's fair.
There's
a couple, but it couldn't be as Dexter as it used to be because for a couple reasons. I don't think it's spoilers to say the premise is that he has stopped killing for almost a decade.
Right.
So he is not going to be nearly the same person because he's not. I mean, he's like not feeding the beast for a decade. That's pretty huge.
Yeah.
Character development for this character.
And I think like a couple of things too is like, one, it used to be the overarching storyline, but then there was always a kill of the episode. You know, he always hunted and killed somebody at the end of every episode. And I think truly, as far as narrative character arcs go, like Dexter is not a character that I think we need to keep going indefinitely anymore, because this whole like killing people thing, like it gets a little, I don't know. I mean, it's felt however many years ago when it started, like, yeah, he's the guy who kills the killers. But now it definitely reflects on like, the fact that his dad taught him to be a serial killer is like, that's fucking child abuse. He taught you how to be a serial killer. Like, that's fucked up. Well, and like, he's not really a hero. He's a bad person, you know, and it starts to not paint him in the perfect light of like being a good guy, that like, I thought it was a great ending. I love a definitive ending, and I thought they did a good job.
I'd agree with that. And I'd say there's things that they touched on in the original run, because Natasha hadn't seen it, so she rewatched it and it was on in the background for me. And there were things I noticed, right? Like he does talk, like he hits later in the original run about, oh, Harry teaching me to just kill people. Is that really the best solution?
Right.
Like, that's kind of maybe lazy of him and just kind of not the right way to go. Maybe that was a frustrated police officer's easy way out. But so I think that kind of gets answered in this. I appreciated that they create a juxtaposition of Dexter's position in his relationship with somebody, and I'm trying not to spoil it.
No,
I'm hitting on
me personally, I
things.
appreciate it, but also I think a lot of people haven't seen it. You know, I had I had a friend who posted something after the premiere episode of the Sex and the City continuation sequel series, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this guy is my friend who's Tom Kelly. He's a big Star Trek fan. I'm like, you can upset nerds with spoilers, but your feed is going to be filled with death threats because you're spoiling something for all of these women who are our age that probably don't get a chance to watch TV during the week, and they were saving it for the weekend. And you know, it's funny because like that happened right before Spider-Man No Way Home came out, which Jeff, I believe you still haven't seen because you haven't had.
I saw that.
Oh, you did see it. Okay,
I saw it on Christmas.
Okay, yeah. The last time I asked you weren't sure when you were going to see it. So
we kept canceling tickets, and then it just worked out where I think they had added a show like at like 10:30 on Christmas night. So we were like, sure. And we thought it would be nice and like more emptied, and then was nice and full. So that was whatever. But we saw the movie and people were quiet. So it was good. Yeah. Good.
And did you and were you able to see it without having it spoiled? Which we won't directly spoil anything here because this isn't that kind of episode.
I don't spoiled. I mean, no. Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think I had anything more than I already pretty much knew.
Yeah. I mean, there's stuff that was in trailers, and then there's deductive reasoning that could come from the trailers. But there's stuff that like you thought might be, or me personally, there was stuff I thought might be in it, but I wasn't sure. On the whole, and this won't be yet another episode of this, but on the whole, Jeff, did you enjoy it?
I did. I thought it was good. I don't think it was anything that, I mean, maybe I need to see it again. I think I saw it after people had been hyping it so much that I was kind of like, okay, let's see. And it was really good, but it wasn't the end all be all. I don't think it's, I think people love something that has that kind of fan service. And I think it did some of the best job at fan service with the kind of stuff that it was bringing us.
Sure.
But other than that, it was cool, but it wasn't.
What you're saying is that it's not the best Spider-Man 3, because the best Spider-Man 3 is still the original Spider-Man 3 with Topher Grace as Venom.
Yes.
Okay.
No, I think it's just, I would say I walked out of the first one being really like, wow, that was a different movie. That was really fun.
You mean
really,
Homecoming?
Homecoming. Yeah.
I agree.
I walked out of that one with a certain feeling that I'm just like, I don't have, and maybe it's just you get jaded after seeing multiple iterations of this kind of shit, and after all of the superhero movies we've had. And I thought it was really cool. I liked the story that they ultimately gave us, but I was just like, there's a lot of stuff where I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I'm always dissatisfied, right? I'm like, okay, I guess I could have done with less of that, more of this. I don't know. What do I want? Did I want it to really be a longer movie? I don't know. It wasn't everything I think I thought it was. I was hoping it could be.
Right. Well, as you guys were talking about Dexter and sort of like, they're characters that we don't necessarily need to have around forever, and the tendency to kind of stretch them out. I have not seen it yet, but I think I have to act quickly to make sure I see it while it's on HBO Max. I did not see the fourth Matrix movie. So without diving into it, I assume you saw it, Jeff, because I know it's on HBO Max. So did you feel like it was worth making? Were you glad you watched it? Just those sort of fundamental feelings. There could be nitpicky stuff within it, But
I was entertained by it, but it's not. I mean, look, I think people who say that the magic left the Matrix series, the more movies they made, I agree with, right? Like that first one they made was really like, wow. And you probably should have really just left it at that. Like if you really wanted the Matrix to have the most lasting effect it could have had, we maybe should never have made any sequels. And that would have been a ton of money left on the table, and maybe it would have sucked. But I'm just saying, like,
I mean, Warner Brothers made a lot of money with 2 and 3, so they're probably like, at least those ones were good. Yeah.
And Dominicus Saxon says Matrix 4 is definitely in the top 3 of Matrix movies. So thank you for that. Dominicus. Will, what did you think? Because I saw you post about it, but I actually forget what you said because I know you watched it.
I mean, I agree with Jeff. Watching it, actually the first hour, well, I don't want to get too spoilery, but
you can just
spoilers,
say
Christian, he gets pulled out of the Matrix. He goes into the real world. He leaves the Matrix.
What? There's a real world?
Yeah. He leaves the Matrix. Part. He gets here. So the first hour,
and I thought that this is the Matrix where we are right now. So now you just fucking blew my mind. But anyway, go ahead.
I watched the first Matrix as a kid 1,000,000 times, and it was so groundbreaking, and obviously like visual effects style and the story and everything. 2 and 3 came out with enough time for them to make all that money. But I remember even seeing them in the theaters being like, I don't think these are very good. And then I watched them like 10 years after, and I was like, these are definitely not good. And so I hadn't seen any Matrix movies since like maybe 2010. And so they flash back a lot to the first one, and he's kind of like fucked up in his head. So I actually thought that first hour was pretty good because I didn't have a ton of memories. And so it was kind of fun to be like, oh, he's like, what's real? What's not real? And then as soon as they pull him out, I was like, boring, lame, weird tentacly guy. And it was just sort of all the same. Like I appreciated that they tried to retake the thematic element of it and not make it just about the fight scenes. So there's like agency for new characters, and there's like a fun heart to it. It's completely unnecessary. I don't really know why we have it, but somehow, in my opinion, it manages to be the second best Matrix movie because 2 and 3 are so like not good, and they're so forgettable that you're like, at least they tried more thematically with this. It has more to say than just about fight scenes.
I'd agree with that to a certain extent. I think the second one and the third one, when they came out, I felt like at the time they had more to say. I just didn't understand it. I thought they were confused. I was very confused by them
too. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there must be a lot here because I don't understand it. So maybe that it would just had one of those like, it must be fancy because I don't know what they mean.
That's honestly what I thought. And then when I watched them again, I was like, oh, they don't even know what they're doing. Okay,
no, cool. They don't even know.
For sure. But it wasn't horrible. It just wasn't necessary.
Exactly.
It wasn't necessary. And one of the things that I thought that they should have touched on, and it's like half joking, but not even joking. The two people who made a movie about living a life thinking with like an entire image of who you are that exists in your mind versus the reality of your body outside of that image. They're both transitioned and never touch on that in their movies. There's no character who's a woman in their mind and then a man when they come out of the Matrix. That seems like a little bit of a missed opportunity.
That's true. I mean, I guess it's up to them, like what story they want to tell. But it's definitely, I agree that like there is definitely thematic through lines that you can draw between somebody who, is trapped.
They made
in
that
a body
whole Sense8 thing about being trans. So
that's right.
Think
that's
that
right.
It would have hit on the Matrix a little bit.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that's a good point.
I have more trepidatious feelings about Matrix 4 that I do want to see. And I think I'm unreasonably excited about a movie that comes out this weekend, but I don't know that I can see yet, even though I've tested negative. Scream 5. I'm excited, and probably irrationally so, because the first one is great, is so good, and so like it's exactly what they set out to make.
Yes.
And I don't hate the sequels. They're not great. The second one was like very like self-aware of like, here's the rules of a sequel. I'm like, all right, great. Okay. And then the third one, I'm like, I don't know, why didn't they just do a shot for shot remake of Season of the Witch? And then 4 was a while later.
I love that.
Right? I would still love that.
Scream 3, Season of the Witch.
Yeah.
Book of Shadows.
Yeah. Scream 2, Book of Shadows. So the fact that then we got to Scream 4, and it was like a while later, but this is like even further later. And I mean, I'm sure that Nev Campbell's like, yeah, I mean, you want me to do another one? Sure. You know, and David Arquette's like, I mean, I guess, you sure you want me in this?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I like those movies, but to be fair, I haven't watched the 2, 3, or 4. I've probably only seen them. I've probably only seen them once. I saw 4 in the theater.
When did 4 come out? Because it's like
10 years
totally
ago?
forgotten about it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's very forgettable.
It was one. I think it was one of those movies that came out when they were just like, here's like generic dark blue filtered horror movies.
Yes, that's a very fair assessment. Yeah,
I think that it was also at a time where like Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson thought they had something unique to say about like social media and how things were going, but they were both too old to tell that story authentically.
Fair.
So it felt really weird. Like the first Scream screenplay is like, to me, top 5 best screenplays written like ever. Like to parody and reinvent the slasher genre at the same time and be that smart, but also scary. And you know what I mean? Like that's just fucking hard to do. And Kevin Williamson's a good writer, but then it got tropey. And then by the number 4, I was like, this is just not for you, man. Like it's become something else. So hopefully the new one.
Do you think that
good.
Scream 5 will be like Scream 5, The Force Awakens? Do you feel like that's what we're going to get?
I think they're probably going to largely pretend, without saying it, it's like a Halloween effect where like really the first one is only the one that they're going to talk most about.
Yeah.
And be more of a sequel to the first one, despite the fact that they're not saying it's rebooted. It's just it's going to draw everything back to the first one.
I mean, that's the Die Hard I want to make, where
I can tell you why I won't see it.
That like Die Hard 1 is the only one that actually, and I love Die Hard 3. Will and I were texting about it just the other day. I will shake the Etch-a-Sketch on all Die Hards to just do a direct sequel to part 1. And Will, I'm sorry, Jeff, you were saying that you won't see Scream 5?
I won't see it for one simple reason. They didn't do an upside down 5 as the S in Scream.
Oh, great point. That's
what a wasted opportunity. Or even
you know what? I don't want to see it anymore. You've talked
boycotting the film.
That's like
get a new marketing department, assholes.
I think when Fast and Furious 6 or 7 was coming out, one of my friends on Facebook posted, and this is now however many years ago, if number 10 is not called Fast 10 Your Seatbelts, then somebody's fucking.
How is it not called that?
Well, it might be because we've only had number 9, so there's still chance. But that better be at least the fucking tagline in the trailer, like Fast 10 Years.
Well, Dominicus Saxon
F9.
F9, the Fast Saga, which is a stupid name for a movie.
Yeah,
which they can't get clever anymore.
Yeah, just hit
F9. Yeah, it's
hit F9. And Dominicus Saxon's going to see Fox Force 5 tomorrow. I mean, the 355. Fox Force 5, of course, is the show from Pulp Fiction that Mrs. Wallace, Uma Thurman's character, she had been in a pilot, and every episode her character was going to have a joke, and she only got to have one joke. And so then eventually she gets to tell the joke later in the movie. But if they why Quentin Tarantino hasn't made a Fox Force 5 series, I don't know if I know. This is a topic I wasn't expecting to go into, but Paflix wants to know, what is your favorite non-USA movie or series? I am hard up to not say Luther, but there are so few episodes of it that it's really hard.
That's why it's so good, because it's all contained and it's
but there was that one season.
There was that one season that was not
the
good.
Season where they didn't have Ruth Wilson because she was on that show, The Affair. Yeah, the 4th season. Then the 5th season was great again. Yeah. That is one of the best shows I've ever seen, just period.
I agree.
But I mean, if we're talking about non-USA, I mean, it's like in terms of hours of enjoyment, even I would say Doctor Who, which you and I were talking about earlier. The anniversary, the 25th anniversary or 26th anniversary of the movie starring your favorite Doctor, Paul McGann.
Paul McGann.
But that's what I'm thinking. But I mean, I mean, if I'm really going to talk about like influence throughout my life, it's Monty Python's Flying Circus. But in terms of like a dramatic like series, or just a series, the Ricky Gervais Office is amazing. But I'm going to still put Luther way up there. But that's just what comes to mind. Will, do you have something? And Jeff, I'll ask you the same question in a moment, but Will, does something come to mind for you that's not
Luther is really the first thing that comes to mind. Doctor Who feels like the easy go-to, but man, I really haven't been able to get through those past couple seasons, so it's just in a dark spot for me right now. But
I know, but do you have HBO Max, or you know what? Don't answer that because I think I know your answer. There's like 30 episodes with her.
Yeah.
And 5 of them are really good, and then a couple are okay. So if you like the really good, like I'll send you 5, like watch these. And if you don't like them, just skip it and wait for Dr. 14. But then if you do like them, there'll be a second tier.
Which is
Demetrius Saxon mentions Are You Being Served? But Life on Mars, the British version of Life on Mars, I understand people really like. The American version was really bad. And Raging Rhino, loved, absolutely fabulous. That's a very funny show. I saw the earliest seasons, and I know they did like 20 years worth or something. But for drama, it doesn't get better than Luther. It's Omakopa. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
I will say I rewatched this on Halloween, and I know
it had
big I rewatched something on Halloween, had a big distribution in the US, but it technically doesn't originate here. Shaun of the Dead is still like one of the fucking best movies of all time.
That's fantastic. I do.
It is so good. I always forget that. I'm like, this is like 8 genres all done successfully within like a 2-hour movie. It's ridiculous.
What about you, Jeff? Non-American content that you've enjoyed?
See, I was gonna say I have a hard time because all my favorite shows are on the USA Network. Psych.
I was gonna. So I was like, joking here about the USA Network.
And
Burn
Monk.
Notice isn't your favorite?
What about Monk?
Burn Notice? Mr. Robot.
Oh yeah. White Collar, wasn't that one?
Yeah, that was one. Yeah. By the way, all shows. Literally, I'm not joking. All shows that my mom watched.
She's the USA Network number 1.
That's how you be a patriot.
It's a tough question. Maybe Kids in the Hall.
It's very important to me too. Yeah. I would say Monty Python, Kids in the Hall, certain eras of Saturday Night Live, all like in, my like middle school through high school years were spent watching way too many hours of those shows. But and there's a Kids in the Hall reboot coming on Amazon Prime, new sketches and everything from all those guys. So I mean, that's a fantastic show. And Jeff, I know you're embarrassed to say that it's Degrassi for you, but it's okay. It's all right if you don't.
I definitely watched Degrassi.
Only the Drake episode.
Totally. I was definitely when he was on the show. And I remember watching it when I was like in junior high, when I was the same age as the kids on the show, and I was like, wow, these Canadian kids are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And then
no, I mean, it's like, the Canadian girls like to fuck.
Yeah. And then I remember like just forgetting about the show and then randomly tuning in when I was in college or something. Like we found it on cable, and like Drake was an adult, and this was before his singing career kind of blew up. So it was just like, what the fuck is this show? Like they were getting chased by zombies as like teenagers in a high school. That show, I wonder. I'm not gonna watch it, but I wonder where all they tried to go with that storyline to have come around to that one episode that I saw.
The commercials on a channel that used to be called Teen Nick, which clearly they were trying to get us to watch it.
I was the demographic when Teen Nick first started.
The tagline about that show was that it goes there. So Jeff, I think you found that it did go there. It's just not anywhere you expected it to ever go.
Did you ever watch the Kroll Show?
Nick Kroll Show?
Nick Kroll Show, no.
It was just like a bunch of parodies of reality TV type shows
I've never seen
and stuff
that.
like that. And then he did a kind of Degrassi parody where they all were in wheelchairs. And it was called Wheels Ontario. And he plays like this Justin Bieber looking kid who is the one person not in a wheelchair.
Hang on, I gotta plug in my laptop.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll wrap things up fairly soon. But we got a couple comments from Ghost 8386. I've never seen Doctor Who, and he loved The Tribe. I actually don't know what The Tribe is. And I've heard of Wellington Paranormal, but I don't actually know what that is. Have you seen that?
Yeah. So it's the cops from What We Do in the Shadows, the original movie. There's the 2 police officers that come and like they're like, oh, there's some safety violations here. Because they get hypnotized at the beginning. They're like, you will see nothing wrong, because there's two vampires like floating in the kitchen and having a fight, and they walk by and they're like, oh, do you see that? There's no smoke detectors in here. It's a fire hazard.
Ghost references, you can't do that on television. I watched a lot of that. That show was not good, though. I mean, I watched so much of it, and it was also like, it also was like problematic at one point because my sister was watching it and my mom didn't like some of the adult it goes there content matter. They were talking about like kids getting pregnant or something, and my mom was like, well, you don't get to watch that anymore. But I had outgrown at that point. But you're doing the accent reminded me something that Will was talking about measuring events in terms of the amount of episodes. And my kids love an Australian show called Bluey. It's an animated show. It's on Disney Plus. And yes, it's a kids show, but anybody who's a parent can relate to the parents on this show. They're dingoes or dogs. I don't know. They're some kind of canine animated characters. And those episodes are 8 minutes. So a lot of times I will tell my kids, it's like, okay, yeah, well, we'll be there in 5 Blueys. And it says like, oh, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time. But they know Bluey is a short show. And that is non-American content that has a lot of influence in my life right now. For the last like year or plus is Bluey, but that's just a little bit more current. And I wonder if we're going to get any more Luther. Will, I feel like every time that it ends, I feel like it ends in a way where we're never going to see him again, and they always figure out a way.
They always do figure out a way. Yeah. I'd rather it be that way. So then it's always like a really great surprise. But then if it never comes back, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I emotionally prepared for this. So yeah, that's okay.
No,
yeah.
I'll see him in other stuff. And I don't know what this is, Flix. Do you watch Money?
I think it's supposed to say Money Heist. It's like
Netflix.
a Netflix show.
It's very popular, but I've never seen it.
I haven't watched it either.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't even get like 3 episodes in Squid Game. So, and it wasn't even that I didn't like it. It was just like just time.
Any of it. I haven't watched.
Did you watch the sub or the dub version?
Sub, because I know that only Herbs watch dubbed versions of things.
I totally watched the dub version. I don't give a shit what anyone has to say about it. Because here's the thing. You should watch it for 2 reasons. One, people who take like shit on dubs are like, okay, so voice acting's not acting. Yeah, fuck anyone who does that. Apparently. Dickheads. But anyways, it's important to me because the voice that they chose is so awful and it doesn't fit so much that it kind of like is context for the whole show. Wait. Just like how awful the voice acting is.
He's talking about Squid Game.
Yeah. The voice acting in Squid Game is not good.
The dub is not. It does not match the tone of the show.
Got it. I was gonna say, and I still believe this and agree with this. It's just tricky because I think some of these things are dubbed in a very particular way. It's like no one's wanted to change the way that we dub Asian content since fucking Godzilla movies, that they're still directed to give these big goofy performances.
Yeah.
But one of my very close friends one of my close acting friends is a voice in that show and has really like championed getting that show to have a fully Asian voiceover cast. So like he's running this organization now that like really tries to get all this content authentically dubbed by Asian actors. And
does that mean they're gonna have like an Asian accent, or like what would the difference be?
No, just like Korean American actors or Korean actors doing the English language track of Korean characters, or Asian actors at least in general.
I mean, there's a lot of that you're starting to see more and more of. I mean, obviously there's a lot of animated content in my home, and I've noticed in series that my kids watch, voices change, and sometimes you take a look and it's like, oh, the previously they had used a white actress for there's a black little girl on Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood, but the actress they use now is not white. And there's a lot of that you start to notice, and so much so that the big X-Men animated reboot, X-Men 97, the actress who was Jubilee has said that she would like to be involved, but she's not going to voice Jubilee. She was a white actress, so she thought that they should cast someone who is AA PI, I think is what they call all of that,
is correct,
which is a term that I've learned because I have 3 AAPI ethnicity people in my house.
You are the minority in your
Asian
household.
American Pacific Islanders.
Yeah, Asian American Pacific Islanders. Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah. Look, Ghost 8386 is going way back with Degrassi. 30 years ago, I was watching Degrassi High. I did watch the original incarnation of that show on PBS, but and it started back in 1979 with the kids of Degrassi Street. So long before there was a Drake, there was Degrassi. Anyway, gents, I'm glad that we had this little powwow at the beginning of 2022. This was Bladtcast 474, and I feel like 475 is a big number, but not as big as a number that is just creeping up on us. 500. That's just insane, crazy talk. And I don't know that we can do anything that lives up to that number. So we might just have to stop at 499,
Yep.
That's just
wonder what the record, and I mean like weekly episodes, not like a repurposed radio show, but like the record for podcast episodes of a weekly.
Well, I mean, there are people who do like multiple new episodes a week, like Mark Maron and Rogan, and like Mark Maron has, I don't know, maybe not 2,000 episodes, but it's over 1,000. I don't know if it's 1,500 or whatever.
So we're not the
no,
Doctor
we
Who
won't
podcast.
No, but we have a lot of episodes that have been destroyed, and you can find copies of them in Zimbabwe, in somebody's attic somewhere, like with Doctor Who. But because we have so many episodes, one of the things that I've been doing is I finally figured out a use for the @Bladtcast BLADTCAST Twitter account, which is a little something I'm calling Bladtcast a day.
I saw
which
that.
is every day I send out a link to an episode of the Bladtcast. And I was originally going to just work backwards and, more than 365, but I'll sprinkle in new episodes and then I'll put stuff up when it makes sense. Like just yesterday, Eternals ended up on Disney Plus. So I was like, I'll put all our Eternals episode there. I did some stuff like that. I recently put back up our Norm Macdonald episode, stuff like that. So so if you don't follow the Bladtcast Twitter account, I actually figured out a way to do something with it, since it never turned into what we promised, which was Will just posting a lot of pictures of hot girls. That just there was like a moment in time where we could have done that, but then that ship
could, I guess, if we wanted to.
We could, but maybe 2023 after Bladtcast a day. I know that we want everybody to check out Will on Blackish next Tuesday, and then that means that next episode will be our Bladtish episode, where we will talk about Will as a, we can use the term waiter, right? We don't have to call them
but there's not a lot to unpack about my job in that show. We don't need a recap episode for it. If you want to do like a recap of the Blackish episode as a whole, that's great. But like me in the show, there's not a whole lot to do. Not a whole lot to go over.
Yeah,
we could talk about my motivations, and really get into it. But I got to tell you,
I'm interested.
If it doesn't speak for itself in the scene, then my work has failed.
From the earliest episodes of the Bladtcast, we've been talking about riding on the coattails of the Will Taraj, and this is I think going to help us. It was Criminal Minds where you accidentally murdered someone, right?
I did shoot an unarmed man, and at the time the character was I shot an unarmed black man, and I was like, this feels like a major story point they should go back to and address. They never talked about it again.
No,
white racist dude shoots unarmed black guy in a parking garage. Nobody said anything.
That's not how those shows usually work.
Yeah,
that sort of a thing.
Wrong demo.
Yeah, Jeff,
you're not wrong. Actually,
what's coming up for you? When do you get to? Can you go outside if you want to now, or should you wait another week? Or
I guess it's been 5 days since I've been like sick. So I don't know. According to CDC guidelines, maybe, but we'll see.
I also forget, because of the East Coast, when we started this, there was light outside, and now it's dark.
Oh yeah. Nice and dark.
So, and we already know that you're not going to see Scream 5 because their choice in logo.
It's not 5 Scream.
Yeah, I know. But we always appreciate you playing her.
James Cameron directed a Screams movie, then maybe.
Yeah. And
Screams.
And Jeff, I know that what you meant to say was that you could go out because it's been 1 week since you looked at me, cocked your head to the side and said, I'm angry. 5 days since you laughed at me saying, get that together, come back and see me. And yes, I did Google Bare Naked Ladies lyrics.
That's funny because I was thinking about 1 week when you talked about Zia's marriage.
That song is actually about there was a lot of chickadee China Chinese chicken, I think, that way. Will, we look forward to seeing you there, and you're teasing something, but it doesn't look like you're ready to announce what it is. You were teasing something on Instagram stories.
New pod.
Yeah.
It's happening. It's a very silly show that I'm doing with my friend Craig, my flatmate here, if you will. Lives upstairs. I got the bottom flat. He's got the top flat. He's like been my like friend and mentor for a long time. He's a former presidential speechwriter, very knowledgeable, sage kind of guy, and we drink martinis and we shoot the shit and we talk about history. So we're gonna it's a history podcast called History Rated R, and we curse a lot, and it's gonna be fun. It's just a silly, goofy thing to do to keep ourselves busy.
If there's a lot of cursing, then there's not going to be any crossover for the Bladtcast audience. So I'm sure that they will not check it out.
I tried to submit it to Apple as clean just so I didn't get flagged, and they were like, "It's called History Rated R. You got to change the name." It's like, okay, that's fair.
You're not clean. Well, we'll come up with something fun to do for 475, but nothing crazy because. Oh man, Bladtcast 500 are going to be off the hook, but honestly, it'll probably just look like any of the other shows that we
got 25-ish weeks.
Yeah, I know,
to get over the Omicron surge, so we can do something, maybe some part of it in person.
Yeah, we'll. You know what I'm thinking? Groove Cruise. We could all get on the Groove Cruise.
I would love it. Kesha's doing it. She's got a cruise in April. That's right around the time. I'm just saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's going to be more like June, July.
Isn't it Kesha now?
Kesha.
I'm just saying we can record it there and then save it. Hold it.
Great. I love that idea.
Yeah.
Just because we're going to tidy it up, Ghost 8386 mentioned this earlier. Primarily aimed at teenagers, the tribe is set in a post-apocalyptic city in which all adults have been killed as a result of an unknown virus. Sounds a little too soon for me. The Tribe was a New Zealand show from 1999 to 2003.
If they had an episode called Quest, I would watch it.
I kept looking at that being like, The Tribe? Is this a tribe called Quest? What are we talking about here?
It's the entire soundtrack.
If it was in New Zealand, the episode would have been called Queest.
Queest. This is my tribe called Queest.
Queest.
I was just hanging out with my midnight marauders. It's a good time.
By the way, have either of you guys seen Free Guy?
No, I haven't.
Taika Waititi is in a handful of scenes, but he just rips them away and steals them from Ryan Reynolds, who was also very, very good in that movie. Ryan Reynolds, I think he's perfect for that.
We also forget that Taika Waititi was in the Green Lantern.
Oh,
he was Ryan Reynolds' friend in that movie, playing an American, which is such a waste of his abilities. His accent is part of his comedy. Should
we do another hour 41 minutes on why Doctor Strange isn't just from England?
I could do that. We could fill that time.
We could easily fill that time.
Yeah,
Doctor Strange love.
That is what that would be a great new Marvel character.
Doctor Strange love,
his nemesis. Yeah.
Well, that's what the trailer looks like for that. In any case, I want to thank both Will and Jeff, and I want to thank Omicron for making an appearance in at least 2 of these windows, and knock on wood that he doesn't appear in any other windows on this show at any point in the year. But it's probably the funniest contributor of the episode was Omicron. I think really brought it this week. So hats off to you. Thank you both. And as always, we will see you next time on the Bladtcast.